The Last Signal. Part 1. The Dying World. Dr. Sarah Chen sat alone in the radio astronomy lab at 3 a.m., her coffee long cold, surrounded by the quiet hum of massive computers processing signals from deep space. The Arecibo 2 facility in Chile had been her second home for the past 8 years, and she knew every sound, every vibration, every pattern that came through their receivers. Tonight felt different, though. There was something in the static that made her lean closer to the monitors. The signal was weak, almost lost in the cosmic background noise that filled the universe. Most astronomers would have dismissed it as interference, but Sarah had learned to listen to the whispers that others ignored. She adjusted the frequency filters and boosted the gain, watching as numbers scrolled across her screen. The pattern was too regular to be natural, too complex to be simple interference. "Computer, analyze signal pattern 7792 Delta," she whispered into her headset. The artificial intelligence took several minutes to process the data. When the results appeared, Sarah's hand started shaking. The signal showed mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and what looked like a desperate SOS pattern repeated over and over. But the most shocking part was the origin point. The signal was coming from Kepler 442c, a planet that had been declared dead by the Galactic Monitoring Station 50 years ago. Sarah had studied the reports about Kepler 442c during her graduate years. The planet had once been home to the Zephyrians, a peaceful alien civilization known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology and beautiful crystal cities. But 50 years ago, their star had entered a period of violent solar storms and cosmic radiation bursts that made their world uninhabitable. The Galactic Council had sent one rescue mission, but when they found the planet shrouded in deadly radiation, they declared it a lost cause and moved on to other crises. The signal Sarah was receiving suggested that someone was still alive down there, still calling for help after 5 decades of silence. She immediately called Commander Elena Vasquez at Earth's Deep Space Communications Center. Elena had been Sarah's mentor and friend since her early days at the space program, and she was one of the few people who would take such a claim seriously. "Elena, I need you to verify something for me," Sarah said when the commander answered, her secure line. "I'm sending you coordinates and signal data from Kepler 442c. There was a long pause on the other end. "Sarah, that system has been dark for 50 years. The radiation levels there would kill anything within hours." "That's what I thought too, but the signal is definitely artificial. Someone is transmitting from the surface, and they're using mathematical patterns that suggest intelligence. They're asking for help." Elena spent the next 2 hours analyzing the data with her team. When she called back, her voice was grave. "You're right. This is definitely an intelligent signal, and it's coming from Kepler 442c. But Sarah, even if someone is alive down there, I don't know how we could help them. The radiation field around that planet would destroy any ship we sent." Sarah had been thinking about that problem all night. What if we use the new magnetic field generators that the engineering team developed for the Mars colonies? If we could create a strong enough magnetic field around a rescue ship, it might deflect the worst of the radiation. That's never been tested at those radiation levels. It would be incredibly dangerous. More dangerous than leaving people to die? The next morning, Sarah found herself in a meeting room at the United Earth Space Command headquarters, facing a panel of admirals, scientists, and politicians. The room buzzed with tension as she presented her findings. Many of the officials looked skeptical, some even annoyed at being called in for what they saw as a wild theory. Admiral Harrison, the head of space operations, leaned back in his chair. "Dr. Chen, even if your signal analysis is correct, we're talking about a rescue mission to one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. The cost would be enormous, the risk to our crews would be extreme, and we don't even know if anyone is actually alive down there." "Sir, the signal patterns show clear intelligence and increasing desperation. The mathematical sequences are becoming more frantic each day. These aren't random transmissions. Someone is counting down, and I think they're running out of time." Captain Marcus Rodriguez, who had been quietly studying the data, finally spoke up. "I've reviewed Dr. Chen's analysis, and I believe she's right. More importantly, I volunteer to lead the rescue mission if the command approves it. The room fell silent. Marcus was known as one of Earth's most experienced deep space pilots, but he was also known for taking calculated risks. His reputation carried weight in the room. Commander Vasquez stepped forward. "With respect, Admiral, this is exactly the kind of situation where humanity can make a difference. 50 years ago, the galaxy gave up on Kepler 442c. If we can succeed where others failed, it would show that humans don't abandon those in need." The debate continued for hours. Some argued that Earth couldn't afford to waste resources on what might be a fool's mission. Others pointed out that humanity's reputation in the galactic community was still being established, and a successful rescue could demonstrate human values and capabilities. Finally, Admiral Harrison made the decision. "We'll authorize a small rescue mission. Captain Rodriguez, you'll have the new experimental ship Determination, equipped with the most advanced magnetic field generators we have. Dr. Chen, you'll accompany the mission as communication specialist. But understand this clearly. If the radiation levels prove too dangerous, you turn back immediately. We won't sacrifice human lives for a signal that might already be too late." 3 weeks later, the Determination launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. The ship was sleek and powerful, built specifically for dangerous missions with experimental technology that had never been tested under such extreme conditions. Captain Rodriguez had assembled a crew of volunteers, each one knowing they might not come back. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge as Earth grew smaller behind them, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. In her hand, she held a small device that continued to monitor the signal from Kepler 442c. The transmissions were getting weaker each day, but they were still coming. Someone was still alive, still hoping, still calling out to the stars for help. The journey to Kepler 442c took 6 days at maximum hyperspace speed. As they approached the system, the ship's sensors began picking up the massive radiation field that surrounded the planet. It was even worse than the old reports had indicated. The cosmic storms had intensified over the decades, creating a swirling barrier of deadly energy that pulsed and writhed like a living thing. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Torres, the ship's science officer. "How could anything survive in that?" Captain Rodriguez studied the sensor readings grimly. "Sarah, are you still getting the transmission?" Sarah checked her equipment. The signal was very weak now, barely detectable above the interference from the radiation field, but it was still there. "Yes, sir. Still transmitting, still asking for help." As the Determination approached the edge of the radiation field, Captain Rodriguez gave the order to activate the experimental magnetic field generators. The ship hummed with new energy, as powerful magnetic fields surrounded them like an invisible shield. The hull temperature began to rise as radiation pressed against their defenses, but the shields held. "All systems holding steady," reported Chief Engineer Park from the engine room. "But sir, if the field strength increases much more, I can't guarantee the generators will handle it." They pushed deeper into the radiation storm, the ship shaking and groaning under the assault of cosmic energy. Through the chaos, Sarah finally managed to lock onto the source of the transmissions. It was coming from deep underground on the planet's surface, from what looked like a massive underground complex. "Captain, I'm reading life signs," Lieutenant Torres called out in amazement. "Faint, but definitely there. There are survivors down there." As the Determination broke through the planet's atmosphere, they saw a world transformed by decades of radiation bombardment. The surface was scarred and barren, the once beautiful crystal cities now just glowing ruins. But deep beneath the ground, someone had survived. Sarah opened a communication channel and broadcast on the frequency they had been monitoring. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earthship Determination. We have received your transmissions. We are here to help." The response came immediately, weak but clear, in perfectly translated English. "This is Zara 9, last scientist of the Zephyrian people. We thought no one was listening anymore. How many ships do you have? How many can you save?" "Captain." Rodriguez took the communications device. "Zara 9, this is Captain Rodriguez. We have one ship, but we're not leaving anyone behind. How many survivors are there?" There was a long pause, filled with static and interference. When Zara 9 responded, her voice was filled with emotion that transcended species barriers. "Captain, there are 2,147 of us left. We have been underground for 50 years, using the last of our technology to stay alive. Our power systems are failing. We have perhaps 10 days before our life support completely shuts down." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. Nearly 3,000 people, an entire civilization, had been holding on by themselves for half a century, never giving up hope that someone would come. "Zara 9, Captain Rodriguez said firmly, we're going to get every single one of you out of there. Prepare your people for evacuation. Humanity doesn't leave anyone behind." As the determination settled into orbit around the dying world, the real challenge was just beginning. They had found the survivors, but getting them off the planet and through the radiation field would require every bit of human ingenuity and determination they could muster. The easy part was over. Now came the rescue. Against all odds, Captain Rodriguez stood in the cargo bay of the Determination, watching his crew prepare for what many considered an impossible mission. The ship had been designed to carry a crew of 50, not nearly 3,000 alien refugees. Every available space was being converted into temporary living quarters, while Chief Engineer Park worked frantically to boost the life support systems beyond their design limits. "Captain," Dr. Chen called from her communications station, "I'm getting detailed scans from the Zephyrian underground complex. Zara 9 is transmitting their facility blueprints." The holographic display showed a massive underground city carved deep into the planet's bedrock. The Zephyrians had used their advanced technology to create a sealed environment, but after 50 years of constant radiation bombardment, their systems were failing one by one. Zara 9's voice came through the speakers, tired but determined. "Captain Rodriguez, our situation is worse than we initially reported. The radiation has penetrated deeper than we expected. Many of our people are sick and our children have never seen sunlight. We have been living on recycled air and synthetic food for decades." Lieutenant Torres looked up from his sensor readings. "Sir, the radiation levels on the surface are lethal. Even with our magnetic field generators, we can't land the ship safely. The field would collapse under that much direct exposure." Chief Engineer Park joined the conversation from the engine room. "Captain, I have an idea, but it's risky. What if we don't land the ship? What if we use the shuttle pods as individual rescue capsules, each with its own small magnetic field generator?" Captain Rodriguez considered the proposal. The Determination carried 12 shuttle pods, each capable of holding about 50 people if they packed them tightly. But sending shuttles through the radiation field would be like flying through a cosmic hurricane. "How many trips would we need to make?" he asked. Park did quick calculations. About 6 trips per shuttle to get everyone up. That's 72 individual runs through the radiation field. "Sir, I don't think the shuttle generators can handle that many exposures." Dr. Chen had been listening quietly, but now she stepped forward with her own idea. "What if we create a radiation tunnel? We could use the ship's main generators to project a focused magnetic field straight down to the surface, like a protective corridor. The shuttles could travel up and down inside that corridor. That would drain our power systems completely," Park warned. "We'd have maybe 4 hours of full protection before the generators overloaded." Captain Rodriguez made his decision. 4 hours to save 3,000 people. We'll make it work. Zara 9, can your people be ready for immediate evacuation in 2 hours? Captain, we have been ready for 50 years. The next 2 hours were a frenzy of preparation. The crew worked with desperate efficiency, converting every available space on the ship for passengers. Dr. Chen worked with the Zephyrian scientists to coordinate the evacuation, while the engineering team prepared the magnetic field projectors for the most demanding task they had ever faced. As they began the operation, Captain Rodriguez established the protective corridor, a tube of magnetic force that extended from the ship down to the planet's surface. The energy drain was enormous, causing lights to dim throughout the ship as the generators strained to maintain the field. The first shuttle launched with pilot Lieutenant Commander Hayes at the controls. As it descended through the radiation field, protected by the magnetic corridor, everyone held their breath. The shuttle's hull temperature spiked, but the protective field held. When Hayes reached the surface and entered the underground facility, he was amazed by what he found. The Zephyrians had built a beautiful underground city, with flowing architecture that seemed to grow from the rock itself. But the beauty was marred by decay and desperation. 50 years of isolation had taken their toll. Zara 9 met Hayes at the entrance, and he was struck by her dignity despite the circumstances. She was tall and graceful, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. Her large eyes held wisdom and sadness, but also fierce hope. "Lieutenant Commander Hayes," she said in perfect English, "our children will go first, then our elderly, then our sick. The strongest will wait until last." Hayes nodded with respect. "Ma'am, Captain Rodriguez said we're not leaving anyone behind. We'll make as many trips as it takes." The evacuation began in earnest. Shuttle after shuttle made the dangerous journey, each one packed with Zephyrian refugees who gazed in wonder at their first sight of the outside universe in half a century. The children, pale from a lifetime underground, pressed their faces to the shuttle windows as they rose through the magnetic corridor toward the waiting ship. But as the third hour approached, Chief Engineer Park's warnings proved accurate. The magnetic field generators began to overheat, and the protective corridor started to weaken. Captain Rodriguez faced a terrible decision. They had evacuated about 2,000 Zephyrians, but nearly 1,000 remained below, including Zara 9, who had refused to leave until all her people were safe. "Captain," Park reported grimly, "we're at critical power levels. If we continue much longer, we'll lose the corridor completely and trap the shuttles in the radiation field." Dr. Chen was monitoring the communications with growing desperation. She could hear Zara 9 coordinating the final evacuations, her voice calm despite knowing that time was running out. Then Lieutenant Torres made a discovery that changed everything. "Sir, I'm reading massive power sources deep in the planet's core. It looks like geothermal generators that the Zephyrians built decades ago. If we could tap into that power—" "Zara 9, Dr. Chen called urgently. "We need to boost our magnetic field strength. Can you route power from your geothermal systems to our projectors?" There was a pause. Then Zara 9's voice came back with new energy. "Dr. Chen, that is brilliant. We can create a power bridge linking our surviving systems to yours. It will give us perhaps 2 more hours." Working together across species barriers, human and Zephyrian engineers synchronized their technologies. The power bridge stabilized the magnetic corridor, allowing the evacuation to continue. But as they worked, both sides realized something remarkable was happening. The two species, despite being separated by vast distances and different evolutionary paths, shared similar approaches to problem solving and an identical refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds. The final shuttles carried the last of the survivors, including Zara 9 herself. As she stepped aboard the Determination, she looked around at the crowded corridors filled with her people and the human crew working tirelessly to care for them. Tears flowed down her silver cheeks. "Captain Rodriguez," she said, "in 50 years no one came to check on us. The galaxy assumed we were dead and forgot about us. But humans who barely knew we existed crossed dangerous space to save us. Why?" Captain Rodriguez looked around at his crew, exhausted but smiling as they helped Zephyrian children and comforted frightened families. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because nobody deserves to be forgotten. Because that's what humans." Tourister, as the Determination pulled away from the dying planet, Dr. Chen established communications with Earth to report their success. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Earth's Space Command was amazed that the mission had succeeded, but they were even more impressed by what came next. Word of the Zephyrian rescue spread throughout the galaxy within days. Other species that had long dismissed humans as newcomers suddenly took notice. The Galactic Council, which had given up on Kepler 442c 50 years earlier, found themselves embarrassed by the contrast between their abandonment and humanity's determination. More importantly, the Zephyrians brought with them advanced technology and knowledge that they gladly shared with their rescuers. Their expertise in underground construction, sustainable life support systems, and radiation shielding would prove invaluable to human expansion into space. But perhaps the most significant outcome was the friendship that developed between the two species. Zara 9 established a Zephyrian embassy on Earth, and many of her people chose to work alongside humans on future exploration missions. They had learned that humans could be trusted, that they kept their promises, and that they never abandoned those in need. Dr. Sarah Chen continued her work in radio astronomy, but now she listened with new purpose. She knew that somewhere in the vast galaxy, other voices might be calling for help, other civilizations might be forgotten or abandoned, and she knew that humanity would be ready to answer those calls. 6 months after the rescue, Captain Rodriguez received a message that made him smile. It was from Zara 9, who had established a new Zephyrian colony on a peaceful world near Earth. The message was simple but powerful. Captain, our children are playing in sunlight for the first time in their lives. They are laughing and running and growing strong. Thank you for showing us that the universe still has heroes. Thank you for proving that some species never forget, never give up, and never leave anyone behind. The rescue of the Zephyrians became legendary throughout the galaxy, not just as a daring mission but as an example of what was possible when compassion met determination. It established humanity's reputation as a species that could be counted on in the darkest times, a species that listened to the forgotten voices and answered the calls that others ignored. And in the depths of space, other species began to whisper about the humans who had succeeded where the mighty Galactic Council had failed, who had reached across the void to save strangers simply because it was right. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not just another species seeking power or territory. They were something different, something the universe needed more of. They were the ones who never stopped listening, never stopped caring, and never ever gave up on those who needed help.